Welcome to the Yvonne Candy Show. Motivational, inspirational, and just plain fun. Where celebrities check in and you can check out what's fresh in entertainment, business, health, finance, and more. It's all about your lifestyle. Here's your host, Yvonne Candy.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me once again here on the Yvonne Candy Show. I am pleased to have, for the second time on the Yvonne Candy Show, my guest, best-selling author, Armin Brott. Armin has been called the super dad of dads, and he also is a pioneer in the field of fatherhood. Armin has been featured on the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Newsweek, and more. He's also been on the Good Morning America show and also Today's Show and Newsweek. What can I say? Armin is definitely the man for you dads, and he's here to talk about tips and advice on how to be the best father ever. Welcome to the show, Armin.
My pleasure, Yvonne. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, thank you for joining us once again. I was so impressed when I went to your website and I saw that book, Military Father. I said, wow, what a subject to talk about. Very well needed. We talk so much about mothers, and of course, mothers are supposed to naturally, we think, be at home with their children. But we don't realize that fathers have feelings too. Tell us about that book.
Well, that really came about as a result of my having been in the Marine Corps years and years ago, and also having done a lot of work on a number of other fatherhood books. And so when we started our campaign in various wars around 2001 after 9/11, I started getting all sorts of correspondence from folks in the military, guys in the military who were saying, I just got shipped out for a year. My wife is pregnant and she's going to have the baby while I'm gone. How am I going to connect with this kid when I get back? Or I'd hear from moms who said, my husband just got back home and our little 2-year-old daughter came running up behind him. She just wants to give Daddy a hug, and he practically threw her out a window. Oh. And you hear stories like that over and over again and realize that we really need to do something to prepare fathers, men in particular, but dads especially, for what's going to happen to their family life, to their relationships with their kids, to the relationships with their partner before, during, and after deployment. And it was a real labor of love, I have to say. I think it's one of my favorite books of mine because I think it really does provide that valuable information about what's going on with the kids. How do you stay in touch with them? How do you understand what's happening with yourself? How do you understand that when you come home, you're not the same guy who left, and the family's not the same family that you left.
No.
So there's so much going on there. It's really very, very gratifying, and I've been able to go to a number of military bases around the country and Japan as well to teach service members about what's happening and just to see how they react and to see that the appreciation that they have that somebody's actually taking this stuff seriously is very gratifying.
Yes, I thought it was so profound when I started to say, oh my goodness, this is a subject that is so well needed, but a lot of people don't think about even talking about something like this. And men, they hold everything in, like you were saying in one of your books, and you don't know what they're thinking, what they're feeling. But give those guys out there some tips on how to stay relevant in their child's life while they are away from home.
Well, I think one of the most important things is to be in touch as much as you possibly can. And, of course, depending on what sort of operation you're going on, that is going to be could be limited. You could have contact every single day. That's entirely possible for some people, but some people maybe just have to go dark for weeks or months at a time. So as much as you possibly can do. But I think one of the things that guys have found so helpful, and this applies actually to guys who do a lot of traveling as well, is record yourself reading some stories. And you could record yourself just audio, or you could do video, or you could post something on YouTube, whatever, reading some stories that your kids either like already or that you think they might like, might grow into while you're gone. And ask your partner to play those stories every day or every couple of days, because that's going to help the kids remember you. remember the sound of your voice, remember the intonation, and it really can help when you come back home to jumpstart that relationship a little bit, especially if you're dealing with young kids under a year and a half or 2 years old, who really process a lot of the world by what's going on sound-wise. And if they recognize your voice and then you come in, you may look a little bit different, but, oh, you're the same guy who read me those stories that I heard that Mom played for me all the time. It's going to be so much easier.
And what about video? Don't you think video would also help?
Oh, absolutely. No, I was saying audio or video.
Audio or video? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, video is especially good.
Especially,
can,
yes.
But not everybody can.
Yes.
But it's certainly, absolutely, it's a wonderful way to do it.
I just wanted to run by the audience some of the books that you've had out there for the past few years that are just still so much needed today before we talk about your most recent book. And one of the ones that I liked also was The Best Birth. And the reason is we talk about all of these methods of giving birth, but you had one that was a little bit different. And I think it was the Moyler system or the Moyler birth method.
Moyler, yeah.
Yes. Tell us about that. What exactly is that?
Well, Sarah McMoyler is a nurse and birth coach and expert in childbirth. She's been helping babies get born for more than 30 years, I think, now. And I met her taking one of her classes in San Francisco. And it was very refreshing. It was not the pattern breathing that you hear from Lamaze about or those kinds of things that women do. It's very down to earth and very practical. If you're in pain, you know what? Go ahead and yell if you need to. and if you need drugs, ask for the drugs. You don't have to be a hero about these things. And she was just so practical and so down to earth, and it really felt very similar to the work that I've done, or the approach that I have, which is I can give you all sorts of theory, and I can talk to you about studies, because I love research, and I can talk about that stuff. But what I want to do for the dads who are reading the books and the moms who are reading my books as well is to say, look, here are some things you can do right now to make yourself into a better father. And that's what Sarah was saying, is here's some stuff you can do right now to make this pregnancy, at the end of the pregnancy, the birth part of it, go smoother. And it's going to hurt unless you happen to be completely drugged the entire time, but you can get over that, and there's ways of making it less painful, and there are ways of making the experience more memorable.
I don't know why some mothers don't want to have drugs, because I did have drugs. It was at some point where I couldn't have any more drugs, and that was a horrible experience, but it was one that I guess I needed to go through. But, a lot of women think that maybe drugs hurt the baby, I guess, or, it puts them in an unnatural experience. But still, I mean, if you're having problems, I think drugs are definitely necessary, don't you think?
Well, it's hard for me to say. I think that what I tell the guys in my classes is, look, you had a choice about where you were going to have the baby and who you were going to have delivering the baby. Hopefully you trust these people. You're trusting them to deliver the most important thing in your life, this baby.
Right.
So you should trust them. If they're suggesting that you should have, or your partner should have drugs, that she needs them because she's been pushing so hard,
right,
and she's run out of steam, and if she doesn't get some rest, she's going to need a C-section. If they're saying that, trust them and go with that.
Yeah.
I think there are these images that we have of years and years ago, to the extent they were ever true, 20, 30, 40 years ago, that people would say, oh, doctors are trying to get out of the office early on Friday afternoon, so the C-section rate spikes. And those things, again, they may have been true years ago, but not now. It's way too complicated at most hospitals to do a C-section for no particular reason. The insurance rates aren't any better for C-sections than anything else. So it's really about trusting the medical team that you have selected to deliver your baby, and hoping that they don't recommend anything that's for anybody's benefit other than your partner and the baby.
Some people take that easy way out with the C-section. However, the after effects of being cut, I don't like that too much. I don't like what it does to your body. And I don't know. I guess it's all according to what your preference is. I guess some people really don't care, as long as they don't go through that pain.
Right. Well,
yeah.
It changes. It's geographically very different. There are places in the world and in this country where the C-section rate is only 5 or 10%, and then there are places like Brazil where it's about 90%.
Oh my goodness!
Because women in Brazil and other places they don't want to go through the stretching that goes with having a baby the regular way. And so they figure a C-section is an easier thing, but a C-section it's major surgery.
Yes, it is.
It's very routine, but it's still a big deal, and there can be complications. So, as someone who's had different surgeries on the neck and the back, and I'm in no particular to have anybody cut me open, and I think probably most women are not either. But it's something that it won't be recommended unless it's an absolute necessity. And there are also some things in culturally. I know that in San Francisco, where there's a big Asian American Chinese community, that there are a lot of babies who are born on January 1st because that's an auspicious day.
Wow.
And there's a lot of C-sections happening towards the end of pregnancies. That the babies might have been born mid-January, but they're coming out early because to try to get that birthday.
Wow. So they're actually planning to have this C-section on the 1st of January.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Well, let's talk about expectant dads.
Okay.
We all know about morning sickness, and it still is beyond us why men go through these changes when us women are pregnant. It's unbelievable. And sometimes they even go through the morning sickness even worse than we do, and the cravings and what have you. Is that something that you talk about with the expectant dad, or you talk about what's going to happen when the baby comes?
Well, I talk about that as something that can happen and does somewhere between 25 and about 70% of the time. Men or expectant dads have some kind of symptoms, physical symptoms that are associated with the pregnancy. They can be weight gain, they can be, as you said, morning sickness, nausea, cramps, different kinds of pains, toothaches. It's really amazing. And what I've come to the conclusion is I've looked at a lot of research on this, and nobody's completely sure what that is. Mm-hmm. But there are a couple things that are going on. First of all, men's hormones are changing very much along the same pattern as women's. And you hear about the hormonal roller coaster that pregnant women are on with their hormones going all over the place. Turns out that men's are too. And they drop, that the testosterone levels of men drop immediately after the birth of the baby, which is one of the things that you could say Mother Nature is trying to help guys stay a little bit more close to home to help take care of the baby. But during the pregnancy, the hormonal levels are changing also. But I think there's a psychological component here, which is that the guys are saying to everyone who's around, hey, you know what? My life is changing here. I'm going to be a dad. I don't even know what that means. I don't know if we can afford this or what kind of a dad I'm going to be. And pay attention to me for just a minute. Give me some support here, too. I'm not the only one who can't fit into his pants,
Wow.
And it's so I think there is some of that, which sounds a little bit crazy and sounds a little silly. And I think it's very much a subconscious thing. Nobody's really planning to do that. But I think there is a way of that men are subconsciously saying that they really want to be involved and that they need some help.
Yeah, I never thought about some of these things when it comes down to dads. It's truly amazing. Yes, dads definitely need some help. They definitely need support. They think about the same things that us women do. And believe me, women are scared too. So we need to support those fathers out there. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, maybe that you know about, can you tell dads that there is a possibility that they can go through postpartum?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, about 10% of new fathers go through postpartum depression. Mm-hmm. And it's very frightening for a lot of guys, partly because we're not used to having feelings like that. We're not used to thinking, oh, I don't really like this whole parenting thing. But also because so much of our role societally is to be the provider protector, and after the baby comes, we want to be the protector. We want to focus on the health of the baby, on the health of the mom, and so to have to pay attention to ourselves and to realize that we need a little bit of help too, mental health wise, to get a break or maybe to get medication if necessary, whatever it is. It's something that we don't like to admit that we have weaknesses or that we have problems. Not that having mental health issues is a weakness, it certainly is not, but it's something that is a distraction for a lot of guys, and it doesn't get paid enough attention to because we're focusing on doing the things that we think we're supposed to be doing, which is taking care of everybody else.
Right. And they're thinking that they're supposed to be strong. They're not, just like they used to say, men aren't supposed to cry. They're not supposed to complain. None of that stuff. And how untrue is that? I mean, really?
Well, it's very limiting.
Yes.
It really doesn't do anybody any good if you say you can't have any emotions except to be angry. That's the reality is that we have emotions, and we're just not acknowledging them, and that's not helping.
You've written a book, Throwaway Dads, and I can't go through all of your books because there are too many to even mention, but there was a few that was very interesting, and I wanted to just talk about. And you guys, don't forget that Father's Day is coming up, and this would make a wonderful Father's Day gift for new dads and dads-to-be, and I would think even grandparents and dads that existing dads, that already have children, maybe they're a little bit older, but still great information, great knowledge. So when we get a little bit further on in our conversation, Armin is going to tell you where you can get these wonderful books. Anyway, Throwaway Dads. You talk about that society prevents dads from being dads. Now, how is that?
There are a lot of ways that we do that. We have, when it comes to divorced fathers, for example, the divorce laws and the systems and traditions are still very much in give mothers custody the majority of the time, and dads are relegated to every other weekend and a Wednesday afternoon or something like that. And so they have a lot less time with their kids. If you think about what goes on in the media, just think about any television program, and you'll find that if there's an idiot character, it's most likely a man. And in children's books, the dads are rarely there. Or if they are there, they're bouncing the baby on the knee, and then they go off and do something else, and the mom is the primary parent. And just think about Robitussin is Dr. Mom, and Choosy Mothers Choose Jif, and all these kinds of things that happen in so many commercials where mom is the only person who's caring for a child. And what happens is that kids see those commercials, and you get girls who think to themselves after they've seen enough of these commercials that, well, you know what, there's really no sense in having an involved dad around. I can do this myself. And then you have little boys who see those things and say, oh, I don't want to be a dad. I mean, people are just going to laugh at me. Yeah. And I think that is contributing to this whole notion that men are not involved. And we also have, the United States is not terribly good for having any kind of parenting leave for anybody. But there's especially, because of this provider-protector thing that I mentioned that is so deeply ingrained in men and also in women's perceptions of what men should be like, you have guys who are eligible to take leave, paid leave even, for work for big companies. A lot of law firms, for example, have paid leave programs. They won't do it because they're afraid of committing career suicide.
Oh, my goodness.
People won't take them seriously about their jobs, or they'll think that they're wimps or whatever.
Right.
It's really, there are so many different things, and I think there's the men's movement, how it contributes, and the women's movement, sometimes how it contributes to alienating fathers. And sometimes it's deliberate and sometimes it's not deliberate, but the bottom line of the whole thing is that guys don't feel as comfortable in that role as they should be. And I think that the guys are coming into it with a lack of information, a lack of support, lack of resources.
Right.
And as a society, we need to do something about that, to encourage dads to be more involved, and then also to give them the support that they need to get where they want to go.
Yeah, I mean, that is the way society has raised our men. I mean, so they don't know anything else. This is the way they were taught, and they were told that they had to be, and they're expected to be that way, not any other way. So, great, great job, Armin. What advice would you have for? And I know that you specialize in fathers, but some subjects that you touch on also, like I said, can help mothers too. So, yes. So what advice would you have for a father or a mother to raise a toddler or even a young child when a new baby arrives? Because, they want a lot of attention. They could become very jealous. So give us some advice on that.
Well, I think you hit on a couple of the biggest issues right there, and wanting a lot of attention and becoming jealous. A lot of times the older siblings will regress. If they were potty trained before, they may not be after a while, or they'll start baby talking again. So it's so important. It's so important for the parents, whether it's the mom or the dad, to make sure that you get some one-on-one time with the older child, and that you do things with that older child that the younger one, that the baby can't do. And it's little things like going out for ice cream and saying, this is something that big kids get to do. Babies can't have ice cream.
Yeah.
This is a cool thing. Or maybe you get to have a big kid bed, or you get to go on special bike rides with dad or with mom. Just making it special. And also to talk to people who are coming to visit the baby and say, hey, if you're bringing a present for the baby, bring something for the older kid too, so that they don't feel that they're being left out.
Yeah.
And
good idea.
When you're asking them to help out, pay very close attention that you're not asking them to help out, and you're not asking them to do too much. That you don't want them to feel resentful that you're turning over this interloper child who's upset them out of the middle of the center of the universe. You don't want them to be thinking that you're using them as a babysitter.
So you're actually balancing. It's a balancing act. So you give that child that attention, so you're balancing it out, and they won't, like you said, they won't feel left out. A lot of parents be so hung up in the goo goo gaga, the goo goo gaga of it all, and I can understand it. A new baby is absolutely marvelous, but you got to balance it out. And, I've seen that regression thing happening with children in my family. So you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Your most recent book, The New Father, give us some highlights on that.
So it's called The New Father, A Dad's Guide to the Toddler Years. And it covers the period of 12 to 36 months. So after that all important first year. And it's looking at continuing the process that started with the first year. What's going on with the dad? What's going on with the baby? How is child development? What can the dads do specifically to be involved at every stage and every age of the child's development? Because what you can do with a 12-month-old is not what you can do with a 36-month-old. They're just different, and they're growing and have different interests. And so we talk a lot about reading, about doing art with kids, about doing music with kids, and the kinds of things that you can expect to see along the way. And how the dad is changing psychologically over the course of fatherhood, because the world gets to be a bigger place, and you start changing your behavior as your children get older, because you want to make sure that you come home safe, so you start driving safer. But there's also one of the biggest parts when this is a brand new, fully updated third edition. One of the biggest sections, or a couple of the biggest sections, are on technology. That there is so much that's changed in our understanding of when it's okay to introduce kids to technology. And I spend a lot of time doing research and talk to a lot of pediatricians, and I was hearing that pediatricians are seeing kids these days, babies and toddlers, who don't have the muscle tone that they need, or the hand-eye coordination to pick up a pencil and draw, or to use a pair of scissors. And part of the reason is that kids are spending so much time on iPads and tablets and other devices, dragging things from one end of a screen to another, instead of actually learning how to pick something up and put it on top of something else. And if you're building a tower out of blocks on a screen, that's a pretty easy thing to do. If you can drop the block, and if you're fairly close, it's okay. But if you're trying to build a tower out of blocks on your table, you have to make sure that things actually balance and that you can't put a bigger thing on top of a little thing because it won't stay there. And those are the kinds of things that you don't learn if you're not actually physically handling something and having a chance to pick it up and turn it around and look at it 5 different positions. And so it's very important to minimize the amount of technology that kids get exposed to for the first couple of years at least. I'm saying minimize and not eliminate because I think there's a lot of people who say zero technology for kids under 2.
Wow.
The reality is that we all have to take a shower sometimes, or
Right.
we all have to make a phone call, and putting your kid in front of a video or giving them your phone if you need to have a quiet adult conversation in a restaurant, that's okay if you do it every once in a while. But if you make it into a common occurrence or this becomes your electronic babysitter, then you got a problem.
Oh, yes,
But
definitely.
It's so important to watch whatever it is that your kids are doing. Do it with them. If you want to sit and watch a video, okay, but stop the video once in a while and talk about what's happening.
And see what they're watching, because it's a lot of stuff that they're watching. You don't even know. Everything that looks like it's for a child is not. Because I know our children at home, I walked away and I thought that they were on YouTube, and I just automatically thought, oh, they're watching a children's program. But some of the things that I was seeing was not too children friendly. So you have to really be careful about what they choose. Tell us about, tell us about your June the 13th event.
My June the 13th.
Is it June the 13th? I could have swore that I got that message that you were having.
Yeah, it's yes, I'm going to be on the Hallmark Channel's Home and Family show.
Oh, yes.
And so that's we're taping that on Wednesday tomorrow, and it's going to broadcast on Thursday. Yeah.
Oh,
so
great.
I'll be on talking about this new book, and a lot of other fatherhood related stuff.
Give us your website.
It's mrdad.com, mrdad.com. And you can get information about all the books, and there's tons of articles and podcasts, and it's all that kind of stuff is free on there.
Well, thank you so much, Armin Brott, for joining us again. And I look forward to even having you in again, because I still did not get to ask you all the questions that I wanted to ask you again. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Yvonne. I'd be happy to come back anytime.
Thank you. And thank you guys for joining us again on another episode of the Yvonne Candy Show. Live the life you deserve.
Thanks for listening to the Yvonne Candy Show. Want to know more? Check out YvonneCandy.com.